Hi, Suzi.
It is.
It's really good to see you. I feel like rivers of rivers has passed since our last meeting, which was not too long ago. And it's like a metronome to meet you again. It gives life a rhythm, and it's really, giving me
that.
peace. Yeah.
I love that. This is our fourth meeting.
This is our fourth meeting, part 4 of 5 times that we are in dialogue about subjects that are important to me, and you bring your wisdom from constellation or life experience. Yes, this time I chose to be in dialogue around language, the use of language, the importance of language. And I'm not going to add more because when I thought about it, it's a huge subject. It's huge. And it's almost like it's hard to pick where even to enter. But I'm just going to remind everyone who is listening to this part that our part 1 was about decision making. Part 2 was about acknowledging what is. And the last one was 5 elements that appears in every life story that I really, really enjoyed. So I'm just saying that I'm Iris Shacham, a Family Constellation facilitator, an artist, a very curious person that loves to hear other people's stories and languages. And I'm hosting Suzi Tucker, which is one of my favorite and main teacher to a Family Constellation. It's a healing method that is viewing things through systemic eyes, not through the individuals. It's almost like the individual represent a whole system. So, yeah. So, hi again, Suzi. And I guess I'm going to start with what is language for you? When I say language, what it even means for you?
So it's funny, as you were talking and as I was thinking about language, of course, as you say, it's a very big theme and a very small theme because it's every day in a way, right? So I'll try to keep linear for just a moment, and then I can't. I know I can't. So I met Bert Hellinger, the person who assembled this work, really through language, right? So I literally worked on his first book. So I had a literal connection with him through moving the first book from German to English, but I'm not a translator, right? So somebody else moved it from German to English in a particular way. And then my work was to move it from English into my sense of the kind of American community, such as it is. So eclectic, looking at social constructs, how things will be interpreted, how things might be interpreted, might be misinterpreted, and really catching the particular language of Bert Hellinger. So Bert Hellinger loved poetry. He loved opera. He loved fiction. He loved philosophy. And I would say I share that sphere with him, except maybe opera, because I probably don't really know enough about it. And so maybe I'll replace it with dance. So we have a similar palette in a certain way. So our connection really was around language, around the overuse of it, because most of us use it carelessly, and we use it in a way to replace communication, and often to stand in because we have anxiety, right? And the important use, right? So often the chatter, we overuse it. And in other ways, it is as profound as, when people say, um, or imply that words are somehow superficial or that language is somehow superficial. I think that's absurd. It is really, why are we using it? Are we using it to connect with one another, to connect with ourselves, or are we using it to separate from one another and from ourselves? It is in the usage, right? It would be like saying paint is superficial. Right? Okay. So, knowing Bert through language and through evolving a shared vocabulary from him and also from me to create a language that is somehow new, right? So one of the things that immediately I think about was his book, Love's Own Truths, was originally called The Orders of Love. And I said to him, could we change that title to sort of evoke more than tell? In other words, could we give it a title that holds more poetry than instruction? Because in English, Orders of Love implies, for me, that you will now receive A plus B equals C, right? Flour and water make this, right? And I know Bert Hellinger, and I'm thinking this is not what you were saying. So I came up with a title, which I wrote on a napkin, as I often did, and I put it in his pocket. And he said yes. So in a way, we together kind of created some early ideas of how this work might move into, from German, from his own experience into an open and shared experience. Okay. Language to me in my own work is, has everything to do with my stance as a facilitator. So there are a couple of things that I've introduced into at least my part of the world. I don't know what anybody else is saying, but for instance, when I ask people about their kitchen table, this came to me as I'm talking to people, and I am literally imagining when you were young and you were learning everything about the world, who did you sit with? Who did you not sit with? Who was the influence at your kitchen table? Everybody knows what I mean by it. Everybody knows what I mean by it. When I say to somebody, hey, Carolyn, tell me about your kitchen table, they say, what? I say, when you were young, who was there? And people give me the most extraordinary answers. She was there. He was not there, but he was supposed to be there, right? They tell me everything. Kitchen table, one word, common and rare. Common and rare.
It's interesting because it takes me to, as people who works with other people, how do we create a shared language? Meaning the language can really bring us together or can really take us apart. And when a person comes into the room or, clinic, how do you find a shared language with him, because we come, everybody comes from a different kitchen table. Yeah.
So for me, you stay, so here's more language, and you stay low
Mm-hmm.
and you stay wide, right? So my sense is that when I sit with somebody, it is my job to understand meaning to them. I know my own meaning, right? It is my job, in a way, to understand their language, right? So, for instance, when I think about resources, and so I talk about resources and I talk about them in a very specific way, they're personal. I cannot bestow resources on people because the resources I bestow on you are actually my idea of resources.
Yeah.
Right? So I look at people, I talk to people, I listen to people, and I'm looking for what is meaningful to Iris, right? What is meaningful to Iris, right? You described yourself in the beginning. So I imagine you sit with me and what you said was, okay, family constellation. I get that. You described yourself as an artist. And every time we sit together, you describe yourself as an artist. This is important to you. Therefore, it is important to me.
Mm-hmm.
And the time we are together, that is important to me. It has meaning to me. And as I am looking for the language that we share, I know that artist, creativity will be a part of our shared language. So I am listening to you in a way over listening to me. I know what I think. I don't know your way in the world. I already know my way in the world, right?
Yeah, but I guess I'm curious. So you listen. I'm imagining not just to the words, but also to the words. And do you actually go back to yourself to find similarities, or
No,
no? Okay.
I don't believe we have to have similarities. I believe that I have a willingness to meet, right? So there's a way I know who I am, and that's very important. And, is that 100%? No, I have no idea. No, it's just some percentage enough that I can say that. And then I can actually step out to meet you somewhere. And my request or invitation is that you step out to meet me somewhere. And that there is a way in which our similarities are deceptive because what I call similar may, in fact, not actually be similar. So it's important that I come out and meet you and that I have the invitation that you come out and meet me. And together, we are actually, even in the hour that we have together, we're going to create something slightly new. It's going to include aspects of not only me, but where I come from, and aspects of you and where you come from. And together, we actually will invite new language, new perception, right?
Yeah, it takes me to two places actually. One is in one of your uh, teachings. I believe that we talked about it in the first 30 seconds. We already should know where the constellation starts. And I'm very curious about it because it's very short time. And from some reason, it takes me there, because how do you recognize in 30 seconds kind of the language of the person who came?
So the language isn't only spoken, right? So the person is sitting in a particular way. The person is even dressed in a particular way. The person meets me in a particular way, right? The person brings with them whether they want to or not, 80% of the information, right? And I would say that I sit back because I'm not looking into your eyes for anything. I'm not really looking for anything. I am noticing everything, right? And there is a sense that what you tell me, so the problem that you want to look at, for me, again, it's always a metaphor for something bigger, what I call your way in the world. There's something about your way in the world that is problematic to you, not problematic to me, problematic to you, right? And I already know something about your way in the world as I look at you, as I listen to the first words out of your mouth, because you're telling me about your relationship to something, right? And even as I ask like really simple questions, like when you talk about fear, who do you think of? And you tell me your father, well, you've just given me a novel. You have just given me a novel. And if we are talking about fear and you think of your father, we know where we're going to enter. I'm not going to veto that. I'm going to take it seriously, right? I'm going to take it seriously. And again, whatever it is you tell me, whatever we are looking at, the issue, the problem, the challenge, it's not the first time you've ever said it. We don't seek help for the first time we've ever experienced something. We seek help because we are tired of experiencing something, right? So I know a lot in those first 30 seconds. Then I'm just exploring. I'm not giving you a prescription that has some high dose of something that if you take too much is going to kill you. No, I'm standing with you and we are opening a door and then we are exploring. And again, I'm not really looking for anything. I am noticing everything. And the more that I notice, the more kind of, you use this in the beginning of our conversation today about something else, the more dots that connect, right? But if I'm only focused on looking for something, then I narrow possibility to my ideas. I actually want to join with the client and scan the horizon and have the experience sometimes where the client knows and I don't see it, where they say, oh my gosh, I just see how this relates to that. And then I say, oh my gosh, now I see it, right? So the first 30 seconds is packed with information. And then what comes after that tends to be reinterpretation, sometimes regurgitation of that initial information, right? Because people want to, oh my God, I just threw my mother under the bus. I want to defend her now, right? Or I'm afraid that Idis can't hear how important this is. So I'm going to tell it, a slightly different way, right? But it often, maybe 98% of the time, is a variation on that initial communication.
Okay. So just for the facilitators that are listening, it's how the person entered the room. What did he ask for before the session even? What is he wearing on his shirt? So everything.
Imagine he has a cross.
Yeah.
Right? Imagine he's very dressed up. Imagine his hair looks filthy.
Yeah.
right? It's not about judgment. It's about information and curiosity and knowing that people don't only use this language, they use this language.
Yeah.
I said, sorry, just one quick thing. I said
Yeah.
on Zoom, I love that I can see people's, it's a lot of information. Yeah, it's a lot of information
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. I agree. Right.
Right?
And yeah, I'm almost, I also think about it. Well, I'm an immigrant. So, when I'm imagining us, it's almost like I'm standing on one bank of the river and you're on the other side. And you say words that sometimes I can catch them. And sometimes it can take me years to figure out something really small just because I lost a word or something. And I, I think that it's not just an immigrant experiencing this, gap in the language. It's every person has his own language that we need to join in the river together and, you know, um, try to catch fishes.
I love that.
Yeah.
And I think you're right. I think that many people, I mean, it's part of the reason I'm careful about certain words because I'm aware that in a room of 20 people or 40 people, we can use one word, let's say healing, which is a word I pick on a lot, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And we have 40 different ideas of what that means, and we assume we all mean the same thing, right? That's a dangerous assumption.
So, yeah.
No, just because then we are ambushed by our own sort of inadvertent narcissism around things.
Yeah. So give us a tip about how to create a language when you enter a room of 40 people with 40 different languages or more. Um, what's your how do you gather them all and bring them to you instead of they feel, drifted?
So that's a great question. I do very little, first of all. So I don't do any group process. I don't meditate. I don't do anything like that just because it's not me. Not because I'm judging it, but actually because it's not me. And of everybody in the room, it's most important that I am at ease with myself. Nobody else has to be at ease with themselves. Right. But I have to be at ease with myself because there's a way in which I'm setting the tuning fork. Right. And I set that tuning fork or I blow on that. I blow the note and other people find the note. Right. So that's really important. I tend to start most groups on Zoom or in person with an image. And I start with an image that I know applies to everybody. So it's not about God ever. It's not about politics ever. It's not about even art ever. It is about mother and father because it's the only thing I know that we all share, right? Everybody. Adopted children, children who were born to sperm donors. I don't care. The language is very open here, but we all share this fundamental thing. So my image usually has to do with order and disorder with regard to mother and child. That way, first of all, everybody looks rather than thinks. That's a big, big thing out of the way. Like people have moved to look out of their own heads. They are looking now. And then I ask a question like, aside from the obvious, so, I put the child behind the mother, It's the first disorder. Probably talked about it in our other conversation. And then I say to the group, well, what are the problems here? What issues does this cause? Everybody knows something. They see it, or they recognize it, or they know it in some way, and everybody feels smart. Everybody feels engaged. Everybody feels a part of. Everybody is among. I am now among. And in a way, that for me is more powerful than anything else. I start among rather than above. And of course, rather than below, among.
Yeah, and I'm trying to break it, although it's hard because it's not through here. It's a language of some inner knowing and not just like something I can figure it out. But it's really, again, takes me to similarities. We all know what a mother and a father is. Maybe for some of us it brings love, and for some of us it brings difficulty, but we all know that. So it's interesting.
And whether it brings love or difficulty is for the same reason, right? So whether we despise them or we adore them, the reason is the same, because we are born of them. And so we are deeply disappointed or we are deeply grateful. That's second. First is we are all born of them. We are born of our ancestors, and our closest ancestors are our parents.
Yeah. And that's something that is common to all of us, and that's why everybody can get it.
That's right. Whether you're Catholic or atheist or Russian or Chinese, right?
I wonder if there's in language a fundamental words like that, because for me a word is like like a glass, and you can fill it with something, but then you can dump it and fill it with something else. And it makes it interesting to see what is in the glass. And I'm just thinking if there is like something in language that is fundamental to all of us, common to all of us. Because even if I say love.
Well, Bert Hellinger said love is not a good thing, right? Love is a force. And so we can shape it beautifully, or we can shape it in an ugly way, because love is neither good nor bad, right? And I think that's true in a way of language in general, that language is neither good nor bad. It neither communicates nor separates. It is how we as individuals shape it, and then how the collective shapes it together, right? So in groups, when you are hosting a group, and I'm careful about words like this too. I'm not running a group. I'm not running a group. Running a group, right? I am hosting a group. I've invited people in, and now they are my guests, right? If I am running a group, that has a different energy, right? So words are connected to little explosions in our bodies, or little contractions in our bodies, or openings in our bodies, or closings in our bodies. I do at the beginning of almost every class I teach, like course I teach, I do this really simple thing where I have people close their eyes and I read a bunch of words. And then I ask people to just kind of note their experience. And they're words without narrative, right? So I will say, like 3 years old, mother, future, death, garden, right? So I'll say I usually have about 10 to 12 words. And people go through extraordinary journeys just in the reading of the words, because the words either open in them or close tight or create shortness of breath or bring back memory in such a powerful way that they can hardly sit in one place, right? Just individual words. I have no way of knowing what the offering is going to do, but I respect it. I respect words, and I respect the idea that they actually penetrate, like get into people's pores and have very different meanings. Two other things just really quickly. One is that the first thing I wrote in a book was in a book called Messengers of Healing. And it was a book about Bert's work where everybody, all kinds of people made contributions to the book. Jane Peterson and want to make sure they actually did. Dr. Gorovich, who was a psychiatrist practicing on Long Island, all kinds of people. And I wrote an introduction called The Weight of Words, WEIGHT, because for me, it was Bert Hellinger's use of words that first kind of opened something in me. Not even the constellation, but what he said, what came out of his mouth and met my hearing. It's like this thing came out of his mouth and it met my hearing. And then it became something new. And so for me, words have such extraordinary grace and power that when I say something and people say, could you repeat what you just said? I very rarely can, because I have released it. And for me, this work has a lot of that quality. Things get released and then we finish them in different ways. Right?
It feels this like, magician work, because you can say many words and it's not going to reach anyone, but you can say something and it immediately touches. Suzi, can you repeat the name of the book just in case somebody wants to read?
It is called Messengers of Healing. And I think you have to probably go to one of the used sites on the internet to find it at this point. I don't think it's in print anymore. Ed Lynch did a chapter in it. I did the book with Ed. It's an interesting book, actually. It's an interesting book. We published it too early. We should have published it now.
Maybe it's time to do it again. I mean,
maybe.
I don't know. You said you were throwing words, and it's almost like people start to understand their own language, because if you say "Father" and my heart is opening, it's like it's my own language. It's my
right.
Yeah.
That's right. And so the seed sentences in constellation work, and facilitators know seed sentences. They may call them what do they call it? No. What do they call them? Resolution sentences or something?
Yeah, there's all kinds of phrases. I know you
He,
use seed, but healing
he,
sentences. Yeah.
okay. So there's a very clear reason I don't use healing sentences. So people think about language, right? The sentences are recognitions of something opening in the system. They're like reflections. They're like little celebrations. You know, I am here and you are there. Or I agreed to my life as it came to me. Or in our son, I remember you well, right? These are like reflections of something opening. I don't have to go on in the same way. I get to actually see something new. And with those little celebrations, I plant a seed for the future to be different in some small way, maybe in a grand way, but in a small way from the past. Something new blossoms, right? Healing sentences implies that the sentences heal.
Mhm.
And for me, that's ridiculous. And also that they, in a way, are the same for everybody, and they are not.
Okay. Yeah.
And a seed, you plant that seed, I plant the seed, we get two different things. Maybe you get a beautiful rose and I get a weed, but we both get new growth.
Mm. I do want to acknowledge that it's like in a play, when you see a gun, it's already here. So if I say
Yeah.
healing, it 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 really changed people orientation sometimes. Just one word. It can be in the right time, and that can, open a whole new, a chapter, and it can change people lives if it's in the right time. If you throw something, and it can not be in the right time, and it can not have a meaning at all. And for me, it's almost a balance between I need to watch what I'm saying. I need to, but like everything I will say will be against me in court. And the other side is the flow, the flow. I'm allowed to say everything because that's the beauty. That's the creation. That's without even thinking about it. So I'm always like in between this, um, ends. Yeah.
Well, I would never argue with you about it, right? That would be silly because then I would be imposing my language upon you. And I actually don't agree to that. That doesn't feel right to me. What feels right to me is to sit back and let both things exist in the world and let both facilitators exist in the world. And to imagine that we actually reach different people in different moments and that it is all useful, right? And that, Bert once said that, I think maybe I've said this before too, that like churches are monuments to separation,
Mhm.
right? So that idea that we create monuments to separation, whether through churches or through our opposition to one another. When I see healing sentence, I see it as a part of flow. It is not what I use because my voice has moved in another direction, but it's not in opposition. It's in extension or expansion, right?
So again, it's becoming to the stance. Whatever I say, it actually matters what stance am I coming from.
That's right. That's right.
Because I can tell a person, I really hate you. And that's going to be received as love almost. Yeah. Um, what do you think about Mother Tan?
I love actually, I love motherland, mother tongue, mother, because what it means is origin, right? And we also use fatherland, which has like we don't use fatherland really, but it's got it like a different energy to it. And I feel like it goes back to something that Bert said, which was very controversial because he's acknowledging that women have vaginas and that babies come out from them. How dare we? How dare we acknowledge that, right? Uh, for me, this has to do with the idea that mother gives life, so original, origin, and then mother gives the way and father shows the way. Those two ideas working together, not separately, right? One is the original. The second is actually the guidance, right? And if either one of them is off kilter, the woman decides not to give life, then there's nothing to guide in that sense, right? Or the woman gives life and there is no guide. There's too much on her in a way, right? So mother tongue for me has like a beautiful, beautiful quality to it because then we can gather other tongues, right? And never take away from the original. We can enhance, right? We can become multilingual, right? But we have that original tongue to kind of gather around. So for me, it's a beautiful phrase.
Yeah. Even to
And
me also, just the sound of it is very beautiful. Yeah.
and that reminded me when you were talking before about being from different places, when you're in everyday life, it's sort of in the United States impolite to ask, but in Constellation, it's very important to ask. It is, where are you from? Right? Clearly, we speak differently. Clearly, we are not from the same place. Where are you from? Right? What is your mother tongue? And in Constellation, it can be such a beautiful thing to go through the whole constellation in English so everybody can be a part of it, and then have the last sentences be said in the mother tongue. And now I don't understand it anymore on this level, but I understand it on another level because it's said back in the original, right?
Yeah. 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 Um, Susie, we are coming to an end, and
Wow.
I know
We've used a lot of language.
we did use a lot of language. What I'm taking from you today is actually no judgment. That's, I feel, the strongest thing that you gave me as a present today about language and about being in a session with a client and about just life. Because it's not even about coming close or drifting apart. It's just about noticing.
Mhm.
And
Mm.
yes, when you say something like, I don't know, a river, it opens my heart. I notice it. But if you say, go wash the dishes, I'm like, it closes. But it's not, that's only to understand my language. It's more about noticing and not even judging it.
Right.
So I want to emphasize it for, other facilitators, and hopefully they're familiar with this no judgment. And my last question, actually two. One is there a phrase in your family that just belongs to your family?
That's a very interesting question. It is. It's funny. I'll answer short. I don't have a phrase, actually. And yet sometimes when I'm speaking, and I even say it usually, I use words. And now, of course, I can't even grasp one, but I use words that are not mine. They're clearly not mine. And they are usually my mother's. But they must actually be somebody behind her because they tend to be very formal words. So I'll be cursing up a storm because that's the way I speak. And then I'll use this really formal word. And I will I don't hear her, but I can just feel my mother feeding it into my mouth. And it's so fun because it gets me actually to move out of this and to sit back and to kind of sit with her again.
Mm.
So it's a funny answer to your question because it's not I wish I had a cool phrase, but I don't.
No, I was just curious because I was thinking ahead of this conversation, I asked the same question myself, and I didn't come up with any language, but I did come up with a whistle. That if you whistle, everyone in my family knows that it's time to come home.
Love that.
And I also thought about my kibbutz life. There was specific words that nobody on earth would know. And it was only the kibbutz languages, like kolboinik. Kolboinik. That's the garbage that stands in. And, if an Israeli person comes, I don't think he knows what a kolboinik is. It really belongs to that specific group.
That's cool.
Interesting.
I love that.
So,
I
Suzi,
love that.
I guess we have to end, although I could sit and talk to you much more. I do want to kind of summarize it for me and for other people. We were talking about language today. It took us to many, many places. For me, the most important thing is this non-judgment when somebody say something or even act something, which is a different language. I just notice without immediately putting it in drawers so I can feel more at ease or something like that. So thank you so much. It's a great advice for anyone. What are you writing?
So I wanted to say too, it's funny, there's this, the phrase who has the last word, right? Two things I wanted to say. One is that with regard to what you're saying, if we judge, we shut down curiosity. Once I make a judgment, I have no more curiosity. Now, if that's my purpose in some situation, okay. But when working with clients, that is never my purpose, right? So just there's a really practical aspect here. Second thing, with regard to language and this kind of myriad meanings, I always sort of tell the joke when people say, I'm going to speak my truth. Usually the issue is they actually mean they're going to speak the truth. In that little word, my versus the, right? And when people come at you with the idea that they're going to speak the truth versus their truth, right? Everybody moves into a defensive field. And they must. Final thing, really basic for facilitation, and the invitation is for people to think about it. And it goes back to this word healing. In the last couple of years, I've really made a point, and for myself first, that I am in scanning the horizon. in noticing and trying to remain curious, I'm not really looking for healing. I'm looking for freedom. Most people know what it is they should do.
Yeah.
But they don't have the freedom to align with that.
That takes me to a whole conversation about capacity, but I'm not gonna.
We will leave it for now.
Yes. Suzi, thank you so much for your language and words and your curiosity. People can find you at suzitucker.com. You're doing so much. I don't know where your next workshop is, but it's coming up.
Pennsylvania for a week.
Pennsylvania. Wow. Amazing. So thank you so much for your time and your wisdom, and I will see you next time.
Thank you for the honor of being in conversation with you, Iris.
Thank you, Suzi.